What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Explain It To Me. We're talking about Wandavision episode 7. With me, as always, are Molly and Ashton. How's everybody doing?
Good. That
I'm
music,
doing good.
that music and the intro just kind of like puts me to sleep temporarily. We gotta get something more upbeat.
We can find something more exciting for Molly. Molly's like, put some music on the intro, and then I did, and she's like, I don't like that music.
It's too calm.
Too calm. We cannot be
guest-
calm talking about this episode.
That's
I'll tell you
That's
that.
fair. That's fair. We should have different music for different series. Our guest this week is a fellow Schmodown competitor. It's Ben the Bandit Goddard. What's up, buddy?
How we doing, guys? And I agree with Molly.
Fine. I'm gonna put like some death metal next week.
Exactly. I'm just saying, like, after all the jingles we got, and especially Agatha's jingle, we need some. You guys need some fire music for this show.
That's true. If we weren't gonna get DMCA'd, I would put the Agatha. It's been Agatha all along song.
Yeah,
it's been stuck in my head. Ben, before we talk about the episode, what's your fandom like with the MCU and Marvel? Like, do you go deep in with the comics and everything, or are you more like me where it's just you watch everything and kind of catch up as you go?
Yeah, I kind of had to pick my battles as I was growing up because it's just like comics, especially, are so spotty with like their continuations and, you know, timelines and streamlines and stuff like that. And I've read plenty of like amazing comics. And honestly, I'm more of a DC Comics fan than I ever was a Marvel person. I always loved Captain America, but my dad was a huge, like, my dad literally has the first issue of Spider-Man, like, in just like this huge box of comics that like I always read. But I was always a DC fan. Like, Justice League was my favorite, and yeah, I don't want to get into the whole DCEU conversation today. But I read comics, but I really fell off probably in college. And like I'll read them every once in a while. And you know, the internet is so helpful because there's just YouTube channels of either people reading comics to you, like Comicstorian, or there's just comics where it's like every page is, you know, 10 seconds, and then it'll just move to the next page, and it's pretty convenient. So I go back and forth, but you know, with everyone saying that this is exactly like House of M, I've never read House of M, so it's been fun just to kind of go along for the ride.
That's basically how I've been. Like,
Yeah.
I only know who Agatha Harkness is because Ashton has told me about her every week for the past 6 weeks.
I was
on.
gonna say what you said to me earlier about Comics Explained, saying that he had a video about Agatha Harkness that he put out like a year ago, and he tweeted that it just like skyrocketed in views after.
I think he was tweeting that he got spoiled. I mean, he probably knew it was Agatha, but like he woke up and saw his analytics and he was like, oh, I guess Agatha's in this episode.
That'll do it.
And I went to watch it, and then I was like, this is just everything is going over my head. And I was like, I'll just wait and we can talk about it.
Yeah, why don't we just start with that? Why don't we just start talking about Agatha? Because that's the big thing.
Now, did you guys, I gotta ask, because we did, like, me and Alex Marzionia do like a stereo show, and after last week, we got a lot of voice notes saying, I thought it was Agatha, but I think Agnes, and I think she's innocent now. Did you guys buy into the Agnes is innocent train?
I fell for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
I did too.
I still kind of think there might be somebody else behind it, and so I was thinking about it after we watched the episode. I kind of feel like maybe like Agatha is what Wanda is supposed to become. Like, maybe she fell for whatever trap this is, and now she's like so far in it that she's being used to trap Wanda. You know what I mean? Because like this whole thing has been so like indirect mystery that the whole like it was Agatha all along literally sung at us directly was like awfully direct for something that's been a mystery show, you know?
So like if it were Mephisto, for example, you have Mephisto like puppeteering Agatha, and then Agatha is puppeteering everyone else.
Like more basically like years ago, Mephisto pulled the same thing on Agatha. Now she's trapped and she's like his puppet now. And now he's trying to pull Wanda into his like puppet show too.
Is Ralph her vision? Like she wanted Ralph back.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think that probably I still want to say that Ralph is is her cat, but I don't know if it's gonna turn out that way.
Well,
You guys don't think Ralph is Mephisto?
I mean, it's way more likely that Ralph is Mephisto, but it's been my goofy theory this whole time that maybe Ralph will end up being her cat transformed into a human.
when she had the twins over and she mentioned the rabbit's name being, what was it, Alex?
Senior Scratches.
Senior Scratches.
Scratches? So I was like, that's a cat's name. That rabbit is a cat.
Well, it actually is another person's name.
Senior Scratches is a character in Marvel?
No, Nicholas Scratch. Nicholas Scratch is the name of her son in the comics, actually.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I was about to say, if there's a rabbit named Senior Scratches.
No, he's an anti-hero. He's like the Punisher. His Senior Scratches. He's like, don't you dare break the law.
Okay, well, so that's Molly's theory that the rabbit is a cat, first of all. Because I was kind of getting that vibe too. She's holding that thing like a cat and petting it like a cat. And I thought I heard it purring. But Ashton, I know you told me you had a theory, and I haven't heard it yet. But
well, so my theory is that like the rabbit is Nicholas Scratch, like illusion to be a rabbit for the sake of, you know, whatever's going on. And that maybe Quicksilver might actually be Nicholas Scratch, like acting out that part. Because at like the final scene, like the mid-credit scene, made it kind of seem like Quicksilver is acting like sort of a guard, you know, like he's watching over the house. And so if that's the case, it would make sense for it to be her son kind of like looking out for what's going on. And if he was involved, then maybe being transformed into a rabbit has been like his cover, other than being Quicksilver.
Sure.
I can definitely see Quicksilver being Nicholas Scratch, like him. But why do you think he kept that form to confront Monica? That's my question. Like, if he's not
I don't know.
Quicksilver, yeah.
I figured that was just to like give us like okay, he's still around. We haven't said goodbye to Pietro, or like we're going to address that, answer the question, what have you.
Yeah, and as like a comic nerd, I would still prefer it to be like alternate universe Quicksilver that's getting pulled in, because his character in the X-Men movies was so good. Like Evan Peters as Quicksilver is just amazing. But
yeah, we had that in that last montage with her song playing, and it was kind of showing her in all the different episodes, like pulling the strings. She was like out on the lawn and like using her magic when Pietro showed up, and like his back had like the purple kind of smoky magic on it. So I thought that
was that her just changing his visible appearance, or was it her conjuring him, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's definitely the one who brought him there, but I don't know if that's just someone she created, or if that's someone else made to look like Pietro.
Either that, or if she didn't bring him there, maybe she was the one that overlaid MCU memories on top of his, you know, like maybe she was the one that was like brainwashing him into the role that he was supposed to play.
And I mean, we got somewhat of a clue with the commercial, and I want to talk to you guys about that too, because, you know, the commercials have been Infinity Stones, and we thought that the paper towel one with like, you know, the red spill was the Reality Stone, but we got this one that was all talking about changing your reality. And it was Nexus. And, you know, like I got to explain what Nexus means. It's like, you know, infinite universes in the center of all these things. So that could explain Pietro as well. But does that throw a wrench into the whole commercials are Infinity Stones? Because if that was, I feel like the Nexus pill would be the Reality Stone, because it felt like it was literally saying what the Reality Stone is. It's like, do you want to face your truth, or do you want to make your reality your own?
Well, so the Nexus thing is actually specifically with Marvel Comics. In the multiverse, every universe within the multiverse has a Nexus, which is a person. And that person is a person who has the ability to alter probability. And in the case of Earth 616, which is the Marvel Comics universe, the MCU universe is another number. But in that universe, Wanda is the Nexus for that universe.
Okay.
Because she's able to alter probability. And so she just ends up being this important part of that reality. And so that could be what that's referencing. And also that's another tie-in to another show that's coming up, because the nexuses within each reality are often overseen by things like the TVA, which is from the Loki show. Because they watch these nexuses to make sure they don't do anything with probability that messes up the time stream. So
do you think we're going to have a crossover with that? Do you think like Owen Wilson's going to show up at the end? Or
I mean, maybe. Who knows?
He's going to show up and go, wow,
I mean,
Wanda.
Wow.
Wanda.
Wow, this was messed up.
I mean, it makes sense that, I mean, I assume there will be like a post-credit scene that ties into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But yeah, it could be tying into Loki instead. That'd be interesting.
And I'm still so surprised that this wasn't like the first show. Like we were supposed to get quite a bit before we got to WandaVision. So do you think like they're changing anything about Eternals, or, you know, I know Black Widow is done and just like waiting to be released, but do you think they changed, like did some rewrites with Falcon and Winter Soldier with this, you know, this time altering, universe altering show being the first thing of phase 4?
Oh,
I mean, maybe there's definitely been some lines that have been changed, because they had the thing about COVID, and then like they had a line about quarantine in this episode. So
they had a line about COVID?
Yeah.
They did?
Yeah, in like the first or second episode. There was a thing where they said no, it wasn't COVID. Like I can't remember.
Wow.
I missed that.
Me too.
I can't remember what it was specifically, but there was a line that mentioned it.
I thought that they brought it up, but I didn't know that they called it COVID. I
want to say they did, but I might be misremembering. I'll have to go back and watch it. It was like the first or second episode.
Huh.
Wow.
And Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to be the first show, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that. So yeah, they probably would link this show to Loki instead. That makes more sense. There's going to be a post-credit scene for Falcon and the Winter Soldier that goes into WandaVision, and we're all going to be like, we already saw that.
Yeah. There's this crazy thing happening in Westview. It's done. Okay.
Yeah. Jimmy Woo comes out of the shadows, and we're like, oh yeah, we know.
Like produces a card.
Yeah. That's funny you say all that stuff about the Nexus, because all I thought of, and I was proud of myself, was Nexus is the name of like the internet cafe, or not cafe, the internet hub that they go to in Age of Ultron. And I was like, oh, that relates back to her past.
Yeah, I thought, I didn't know, or I haven't been thinking that these commercials are necessarily representing the Infinity Stones. I thought that they were more representing Wanda's past and just like different events that have happened. And now maybe it's kind of catching up to kind of like what's happening in the moment.
I saw someone, I wrote it down, at Dipped in Words on Twitter, noticed that the episodes are kind of going through all of the stages of grief. And this one is obviously depression, but like the first two, the 50s and 60s, are denial. And then there's anger, bargaining, we're in depression. And then at the end, we'll get to acceptance. So like it's all kind of watching Wanda go through the stages of grief over Vision.
Yeah, it could be.
Which, I mean, that ties into Ashton, your guess that at the end she will have to let go of Vision and make that choice instead of like having it made for her by Thanos.
Yeah, well, and with, you know, my theory this whole time about it being, you know, Mephisto or somebody like that, sort of putting her in this situation because of some deal that she made with them, like her trying to kind of like cheat it at the end and manage to keep the twins, you know, or something like that. I think that's kind of my prediction of where it's going to go, but I could be wrong. And
Monica had that really great monologue towards the end of like telling her about losing her mom and kind of being like, I understand the pain and like I couldn't go back and redo it or change it. I just had to accept it as my truth. So I think that's kind of like that's going to get into Wanda's head probably. And yeah,
well, I feel like she was about to convince her. Like Wanda would look like she was about to end it before Agnes showed up.
Yeah,
like she was about to accept it because like she was believing her about. Because we learned that the director was like trying to reactivate Vision, but like put him as strictly a weapon. And I do now do you think Vision will survive this? Because they were trying to revive him outside the Hex, like without the Mind Stone. And it seems like Wanda's power, like the fact that he survived outside the Hex last episode, at least for a minute, I felt like, he was just going to drop dead when he went outside. But the Mind Stone was still intact when he went outside the Hex. I thought that was interesting.
That's another, like, I guess if they're pulling things like Quicksilver from other realities, maybe they pulled whoever reactivated Vision, maybe they pulled the Mind Stone from another reality or dimension to activate him.
I kind of have the feeling that like Sword basically was trying to put Vision back together because they wanted their weapon, but that they couldn't do it, so they tipped Wanda off about where he was to see if she would take him and do the work for them. But I don't think that they predicted how she was going to try to do it. And that now it's kind of like out of control and they're trying to, extract Vision without breaking him or something. I don't know.
But except that they didn't do anything to help him at the end of the last episode. He was like falling apart and they were all just like,
yeah. I mean, they might have given up. They might have given up on Vision surviving this whole thing at this point. Maybe now they're just trying to like stop it and kind of like wipe their hands clean of the whole situation. I don't know.
I still think Hayward is a Skrull. That's my big tinfoil hat theory. That he's a Skrull.
Yeah, I've been sort of thinking something's going on with him too, because like at the beginning of the show, he was he was kind of different. Like he was so much nicer to Monica when they first had the first scene with him, and then he like says that he has to leave, but then he is right back again really quickly. It's just that whole interchange of him being like, okay, I got to go back to headquarters, and then he shows up like 5 minutes later and is like, okay, I have approval. Even though I'm the director, I have approval to show you this video. And it's like, I don't know. The whole thing seems suspicious.
It does.
So what? But I know that they're like building the secret invasion, right? That was officially announced.
I think so. Yeah.
Is it? Oh, wow. I missed that.
But the Skrulls were good guys in Captain Marvel. So what do you think is going to happen that changes them? I mean, it could be just like an offshoot group of.
I mean, like I feel like it's like with everything, like with Star Wars, with Star Trek. It's always like a full planet. They all have like the same viewpoint. Like there's no differences in aliens. So it's
all
like
the Skrulls are good now.
Exactly. Like there could be Talos and all his people are very peace loving. Like they just want to find their home planet with Captain Marvel. But there could be some people that are like, no, I think we found our planet and it's Earth and we're gonna take it over. And so there could be that, because like I feel like we always like lump in aliens like so they're all of one mind. It's like no, they're just like us. Like there's good and there's bad and there's people with different ideologies and everything like that. So that they could be that to where we met Talos and like they're great and they just want to chill. But there could be other Skrulls that are like, no, we want to stay here on Earth and maybe not have like the best intentions for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the comics too, like. The Skrull and the Cree and all of these like intergalactic like empires and stuff are often kind of like sometimes they'll show up and they're being helpful, and other times you have like their equivalent of the CIA showing up and just like doing mean stuff.
That's the best way to put it. You're just doing mean stuff.
And so you never really know what you're going to get when somebody from the Skrull or the Kree or one of those groups shows up. Like they might be just some people that are from that empire and they're here for whatever potentially benevolent reason. But sometimes you end up with like the spec ops that are here to just shoot people or whatever.
So during the whole episode, one thing I was thinking about, so like things kept switching around and changing like between the different eras. And I was like, oh, maybe Wanda's kind of losing control, but was that Agatha doing that or was that Wanda?
I thought it was Agatha. Oh, I was going to say, I just thought she overexpanded the Hex and she can't like, because I mean, we saw like in, when Vision was wandering around, people on the fringes that weren't directly involved in the show were just like, doing the back and forth or completely frozen. So I thought that it was just like she's at the limit of her powers. Like because like it was one thing she could have gone 5 feet to get Vision back, but she went like an extra half a mile almost to expand the Hex. So I thought it was just like the limit of her powers, but it definitely could be Agatha messing with her.
Mhm.
Well, it like Agatha might be trying to make her just lose it a little more and a little more.
Yeah, and Alex,
So
you
I can see
pointed
her
out
just
whether or not it was Wanda or Agatha keeping Darcy and Vision from
Right.
getting there faster with like the random, like the kids crossing the street and the people.
I think that's got to be Agatha. Like
That's for sure. Like,
Yeah, probably.
Vision thinks it's Wanda, but Wanda at the start of the episode was like, "Where's your dad?" Well, if he doesn't want to be here, I guess I can't make him. So it doesn't seem like she wants him away.
Mhm.
Yeah, and especially when, because like it's revealed that Agatha's behind the the Modern Family camera. She's the one doing the interviews, and the fact that Vision goes, "Why am I even talking to you? Like,
Right?
what am
Can
I
we
doing?"
I love
Like-
that he had a little mic on his
Yeah, he
little
like takes
armor
the
piece.
mic off and everything. It was so good. Like that was such a great detail. But yeah, just like that was kind of the clue for me that Agatha was like it was another power that was doing this because like he was just like, why am I? And then especially when they showed her, I was like, okay, so Agnes or Agatha was the one stopping him and Darcy from getting there for sure.
I liked that like Wanda opened the door and knew it was Agnes at the start of the episode. She heard someone knocking and she was just like, yeah, whatever. Hey, Agnes. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder what
mean-
level of.
They've become really close, and she just like she's trusted Agnes this whole time more and more as we go on.
Do you think that it's important that like so at the end when we got the "It's Agatha all along" jingle and everything, we see that she's the one sitting behind the camera during the talking heads, but when they actually asked her a question, it was not Agatha's voice.
Right.
It was someone else's voice. So like that sort of is part of why I still think that there's somebody else involved too.
That's
yeah,
true.
it was like it was a man's voice.
Yeah.
And you've said that like Agatha's kind of helpful
In the
to
comics,
Wanda?
she's kind of a good guy. Like she usually is helpful and is like a mentor. And at one point, she's like the babysitter for the Fantastic Four, and like she's not typically a villain in the comics anyway. So I don't know.
I think she's definitely like doing this in service of Mephisto, whether it's willfully or because she has to. Like, especially the whole "I bit a kid once." Like, I think I don't know. One, that was the greatest. That was the most Catherine Hahn line reading ever, and I'm so glad she's in the show. She's like, "I'm not gonna bite." I actually did bite a kid once. Like that was like the most perfect Modern Family office cutaway right there, and just her line reading was so perfect. But then
I like Agatha's commitment to the bit that she's doing her own. Oh, interesting. Maybe.
People are saying that.
Oh, could be.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's
But,
crazy that someone did that. That's crazy
I
that
know.
someone did that and raised the pitch and like we have our own CIA agents breaking this stuff down. That's amazing.
I love
Marvel's
that.
just sitting back like nerds.
Yeah.
Like,
We don't have to do anything.
yes.
I love that. I like Agatha seems like the producer of this show, and she went and recorded her own little interview for nobody except for herself, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a full method actor for this show. Like actually getting lobster, killing a dog, like
Yeah. Something, since we're talking about like, yeah, all this crazy stuff, the links that people are going through, I saw another Schmodown competitor, Rachel Cushing, was talking about like some people were disappointed with the Agatha reveal only because like we figured it out. Or I mean, I didn't. Ashton told me, but
yeah, I
people
was
are like,
yeah,
I didn't figure out anything.
I got those voice notes too on stereo.
But people are like disappointed that they figured out the twist. So I'm like, yeah, Ashton, maybe there is yet another twist to come, but also it does like this is kind of part of the discussion of when you release things weekly versus a binge model where like you wouldn't have time to do all this theorizing if you just binged it.
Mhm.
But I do think the theorizing is really fun.
Yeah.
But
I
I don't know
agree.
why people are disappointed in this thing. Like it still raises a bunch of questions. It's not like I'm going, well, oh, it is Agatha. Great. Like,
Well, yeah,
I'm
and
still
I mean,
curious.
If it turns out that, if it turns out that there is no Mephisto or anything else behind it, and it is actually just Agatha all along, then, I mean, at the same time, Agatha's a really cool character, and I'm excited to see her do more stuff, even outside of this WandaVision, program.
Well, I
like
feel
seeing her show up in maybe Doctor Strange or something as like another magic user.
Yeah,
Like, that sort of thing is awesome, and I love that that's potentially, possible at this point.
Well, especially it's like one of those like damned if you do, damned if you don't thing, because people are mad that their theories are right, but then they're also mad that like the person that Monica was meeting wasn't Reed Richards or Doctor Strange, or so it was just like a random admiral that had a space rover.
Or
like,
I'm not convinced that that's that Major Goodner.
It's possible that like she just didn't meet them yet, because I didn't get the feeling that any of the people that she met there were the astrophysicist.
It just doesn't make right. It doesn't make sense to be like, I know an aerospace engineer that'll help us out, like, and then to keep kind of teasing it that way. It might just be us nerds like reading into stuff way too much.
Yeah.
But to me, it feels like they are building to something, and they could have written it in a more like, oh, I've got someone that can give me a rover, a space rover, and like
well, and they were all like just military personnel that were handing it over, basically. Like I didn't get the feeling that was the person who designed it or whatever, and so it's still possible that could be someone important that they were name dropping that might show up later.
It's
or
possible.
Not at all. I don't know.
Yeah, it's but just like people get like their own theories, and then when those theories don't match up with what happens, I know people get like disappointed, and it's like, oh, this shows. It's like, no, actually,
I could definitely see it being Reed Richards if that person doesn't actually show up personally in the show. The main reason I think it's unlikely to be Reed Richards is mostly because it's so early for that actor to actually show up on screen compared to when the Fantastic Four movie is going to be coming out eventually.
But doesn't Agnes have a lot of ties to Fantastic Four? Like in the comics, that's kind of where she showed up, isn't it?
Yeah, she was a babysitter for Franklin Richards at one point. But yeah, her biggest babysitter. I think her biggest contribution has been as the mentor for Wanda. But yeah, she definitely has a lot of connections with Fantastic Four as well.
So what do you think Agatha's endgame is right now? Like, are we going to learn next episode that she's actually trying to help Wanda, or is she doing something nefarious? She killed a dog, so
yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I was thinking about that, and I think maybe if it's Mephisto, then getting Wanda to create the kids could be the goal. And now she's done it, and now he doesn't care if the illusion breaks down because he can take them at this point.
And we don't know where they are right now.
Yeah, and as of right now, we don't know where they went because they clearly weren't playing in the basement.
Playing in that
well, they might have been at one point.
Yeah. But if it is Agnes, then maybe same deal. Maybe there's some reason that she wanted Wanda to create these two kids. But it could also be that maybe they're trying to get her to recreate the Mind Stone by recreating Vision. I don't know.
I think that's Hayward's end goal, is like getting another Mind Stone, regardless if it's in Vision or not. I think like he wanted the Mind Stone recreated because he saw the potential of it. I don't know. I'd like to think that Mephisto is pulling the strings behind Agnes. Whether she's doing it willingly or not is like the big question for me. Like whether she's a part of this or whether she's like his servant that he trapped, and now he's like, to pay your debt, you got to give me these two kids, basically, type thing. But yeah, so I'm wondering what her end goal is as well, because like you said, she's going all in, including murdering a dog. So like either she needs to be like under his control or she's a villain. Like
yeah, exactly. And so like if it's really based on the comic book character, it'll be surprising to me if they make her an actual villain. If they do, then cool. Like, I'll be interested to see what that character does. But if it's more in tune with the comic book version, then I would think she would end up being a good guy.
I definitely think it has something to do with the kids. And I think she knew that the kids had powers. But it's also like, if Pietro is under her control as well, or on her team or whatever, like, she seems like she's interested in what Wanda can do. Pietro was basically interrogating her, like, how did you do this? And where have you been keeping the kids? And there was the episode with Sparky, and the kids, Billy and Tommy, were like, you can bring people back from the dead. And she was like, you can? So
yeah.
And real quick, I was just thanks for the cheer, Darth Greg. I wish Streamlabs would let you have, or StreamYard would let you have alerts pop up. But
yeah, it's so weird how OBS or Streamlabs doesn't work with StreamYards. It's really strange. But yeah, like and that's what I'm wondering too, is like if she created Pietro but doesn't know how Wanda did this, like why was Pietro just like straight out interrogating her and antagonizing her too? It's one thing, like if she wanted to learn everything and the whole like, well, your husband can't die twice, like it's like you're kind of pushing the limits there. So I'm wondering, that's the thing, is that it keeps going back and forth of like what she wants and what she's trying to get from Wanda and what she knows, because like why was she acting like she didn't know what was going on with Vision? Like, because what does she have to gain from Vision getting out of the Hex? Or like, did she want Wanda to expand the Hex to save Vision, to make it bigger, to make Wanda need her to help her maintain it?
Do we want to talk about the creepy book?
Yeah, let's talk about the basement, because I actually did grab a couple stills. We got like these little symbols. I don't know if those mean anything.
I was trying to see if they had letters on them.
And spooky book.
Spooky book.
I was telling Ashton before we started, my notes just are a bunch of little words with question marks. So I'm like, tree roots, symbols, spooky book, bugs.
Bugs.
You sound like a Bill Hader on Saturday Night Live. This basement
has everything.
Creepy symbols, bugs, missing children.
Children that are probably drugged and locked up or something.
The hottest new nightclub.
No, but yeah. That's the thing. I paused on that too, and I have no idea. Ashton, this is your area of expertise.
I mean, it could be a bunch of different things, like Chthon or however you pronounce that. I've only ever read it. That's like a old god sort of villain-ish, character that's just super powerful, kind of like Dormammu in the Doctor Strange thing.
I do want to talk about Dormammu at some point, because I kind of got just the purple color behind her magic had me curious, but continue.
So I mean, it's possible that entity could be involved. A lot of people were talking about the Darkhold, but that was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I kind of doubt they're going to use it again. But maybe. There was also a kid that was dressed up as Dormammu in the Halloween episode, I think.
Really?
Yeah. Or at least it looked like that's who they were supposed to be dressed up as. So.
Oh, hey. What's up, Ace?
Hey, what's up, Ace?
Maybe Agatha once wanted to open the book.
Maybe.
So, and it was like an orange color. Like I'm really getting honed in on the color of their magic and everything. So the book had like an orange color. Obviously, Wanda has red, and then violet for Agatha. So is there any reason to the color?
I was gonna say, did Agatha take her over at the end? Because like her face started to glow purple.
I guess I saw that as just like her saying, "It's been me all along." Like Wanda was seeing what we saw.
Yeah, I think that was her showing her the jingle and the everything.
She's like, "I worked really hard on this.
Look at this video I made."
This is my gallery. Like, everyone look at the behind the scenes real quick.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, maybe her magic. I mean, I think her magic is definitely different, but I think it's a different color just to differentiate it from Wanda's magic.
Like, I mean, I do imagine at one point they're going to be shooting magic at each other, and we'll want to see, okay, that's red, that's Wanda, that's purple, that's Agatha. Got it. You're right. But I was also like, yeah, is her magic related to the dark dimension? Or maybe Ace is onto something where it's like that book has an orange magic and they need to combine. Red and purple don't make orange, but like
Alex needs to look at a color wheel.
I mean, and it could be something along the lines of, if Mephisto is involved, maybe he's actually sealed up in that book and he needs two witches to use both of their powers to unlock it or something. And so he's trying to get both of them under his spell to do something like that. I don't know. Could be.
Now, real quick, so we got a little piece of Monica's powers in this episode, or like, the budding of powers Spectrum or Photon, whatever we want to call her, whatever she's going to be called. Now, my theory is that everybody in this hex, this is the start of mutants in the MCU. Now, I don't know if or at least the Sword agents, that got hit by the barrier of the hex, because that's how Monica got changed, and she went through the barrier. And I don't know if it had to go through twice or once, but do you think that she's going to be the only one with powers at the end, or do you think there will be multiple people, maybe not with superpowers and won't all become heroes, but do you think this is the start of mutants in the MCU, or at least a group of people that are all changed by this event?
We've talked about that. I'm getting the sense that Monica's going to be the only one, and that if they're doing mutants, I think they will, and it'll just be another reason.
I think it might be a multiverse thing that'll bring the mutants in. If they do make it so it's Pietro is Pietro Maximoff from another universe within the multiverse, then they can also be and there's this whole group of mutants in that one, and they've been fighting Apocalypse and had all these adventures and everything, and then maybe some of them get pulled over into the MCU. I could see them maybe doing that. I think
they don't age. They started in the 60s, they're in the 90s, and they look the same. It's crazy.
Yeah, but if they pull them directly out of the 80s or whatever, then that would actually kind of explain that. That would be kind of a cool explanation for why that is. And
I think I'd rather them just start fresh with the X-Men.
Yeah, I would too. But that would also be something that could explain the issue that we've talked about in previous episodes of this show, where we were talking about how Magneto being too old with his backstory, things like that. If you pull him out of the 70s, then it's not too long ago. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't mean specific, it doesn't have to be mutants or anything like that, but do you think Monica's going to be the only one that's altered after this?
Maybe?
I'm going to say yes. I think that she went in, she was thrown back out. This time she went in, and it seemed, we haven't seen people having to cross through it before, but it seemed like she had to go through it farther. It was literally ripping her apart, and she had to, I really loved that scene. Where she's really hearing her past, and she's going through her own grief and putting herself back together, and she comes out the other side stronger.
Well, I think also the boundary is more defined now. People, I think that when she went through it the first time, it was still calm and people could just walk through it even if they weren't Spectrum, basically. But in this case,
that's true. You could crawl through it through the sewer,
right? And now it's all angry, and it had to be something special, like Monica using her powers that she didn't know that she had to force her way through it.
So let's have you explain Photon or Spectrum or...
Spectrum. She's had a couple of different names. I think Photon might have been her mother's superhero name or something, but she's currently in the comics known as Spectrum. And yeah, basically she's able to turn herself into energy and manipulate energy that's on the electromagnetic spectrum.
So that's what that vision...
Yeah, that was her actually seeing magnetic energy, basically.
Cool.
And what power does that translate to? Because I read that does she take Captain Marvel's place, or is she the current Captain Marvel? I thought I read that somewhere.
No, her powers are pretty different. Captain Marvel's powers are pretty hard to describe. She's able to shoot energy, and she's just really tough because she's just infused with cosmic power, whereas Spectrum specifically is able to, for a limited amount of time, turn her entire body into energy, which makes her, obviously pretty hard to, fight, basically. And then she can manipulate other energy like electricity and things like that.
Got it.
I have been surprised with the amount of, they've introduced 3 new superheroes so far. Agatha's been around. This is an introduction for her as well, but literally Wiccan and what's the other ones?
Speed.
It's literally the easiest thing to remember, and I couldn't. Wiccan and Speed, and now Photon or Spectrum have all been introduced. I was not expecting this level of, I don't know, lore development in this series.
Especially if the twins do stick around and it's leading to a Young Avengers project of some kind. Yeah, that would be I'd be super excited to see that.
Plus, she had the bomb superhero landing moment.
She did have the
It's like-
superhero landing moment for sure.
So how powerful is she? Can she take on Wanda?
She's pretty tough. I mean, Wanda is kind of a special case. She's, when she wants to be, one of like the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe. But also she frequently loses her powers. So,
Yeah, she seems like a very unstable person in the comics.
Well, because her powers are all based on chaos too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's definitely like she took on Thanos when she was like fueled by rage and stuff. And right now she's depressed and like everything seems like it's out of her control. So it's kind of like almost a Jedi. You got to be focused and balanced to really.
Yeah. And also because like her moments where she does the most impressive and powerful things that she does are when she actually manipulates reality, basically. Like she manipulates probability to change the universe, but that's not something she can really do when she's just trying to duke it out with Thanos or whatever. I
was going to say,
she just shoots red energy.
Like, do you think that, like, because I feel, everyone's saying like, oh, Captain Marvel's too powerful, like we won't get like a good, sequel out of them. Like it's like the Superman syndrome almost. Do you think they're gonna nerf Wanda after this? Like, do you think, they'll do Multiverse of Madness, but then Wanda be like, I'm too powerful, I need to take a break, or I need to, go off on vacation or something like that? Or do you think they're just gonna leave her like this super powered, and we're only gonna get her in Avengers film when we have like a Thanos level threat to the Earth or something like that?
Maybe, or she might end up at the end of the show like basically just not giving a shit anymore, because like she cares about some pretty specific things, and if those things are mostly taken away, then she might just kind of not really care and go off and hide somewhere or something, or there's the old trope of amnesia that affects that character in the comics frequently. She is constantly forgetting who she is and losing her powers, and so there's all sorts of ways that they might temporarily remove her from the equation as a solve all the problems sort of character. So yeah, I mean, I think something like that almost needs to happen, because otherwise it does become why don't they just call Wanda and have her fix it?
Yeah.
I mean, they've had to do stuff like that before, where like, why aren't the Avengers helping out? Why don't all the Avengers come to help this thing? Or where are Thor and Hulk in Civil War? Like, they just write out reasons for them to not be around to solve this one problem.
One thing you should do: call the Avengers.
Right.
And then, like, they explain why they don't do that. So I do like that. I think they'll be able to, like, write her out. But I'm just wondering, like, because I want her in as many, just Elizabeth Olsen, I want her in as many MCU movies as possible because she's so good. And you're right, like it's always trauma that makes her the strongest, because she ripped out Ultron's heart through vibranium, an unbreakable substance. She ripped it, and that was before she even had a fraction of her powers or knew a fraction of what she could do. And it was after Pietro died, and like she was like, how that felt, and she just rips it out like with nothing. And so I'm wondering if like she's gonna be like, I'm only powerful when I'm super traumatized, so I need to go to a log cabin somewhere and do some meditation or something.
Well, need some of that Nexus.
And it's and it's possible that maybe that's how this series ends, is that she realizes that she doesn't really know how to use her power to its biggest, like most maximum effectiveness, and maybe she goes off with Agatha so that Agatha can teach her, how to actually do magic. So because like I think that most of the things she's done so far have just been her using her like powers and kind of unconsciously changing things. But in the comics, she learns from Agatha how to actually do spells and that sort of stuff. So
I'd love to see, like, because right now we just get like the fingers, and then like Doctor Strange doing this. Like, I want to see some spells. I want to see some actual magic in the MCU.
Yeah.
So especially if they're going to fight the literal devil. Like, if they're going to bring the actual devil in the MCU, I'm okay with magic.
So there are different kinds of magic in the MCU?
Yeah.
Or would this be basically the same thing as what Doctor Strange does, but just maybe interpreted differently?
One thing I read about Agatha was that her magic is different from Doctor Strange's magic. Like, Doctor Strange gets his magic from someplace else, and Agatha's magic like works differently. But
yeah, I mean, I think that they have like different sources for their power, basically. But a lot of the spells that Doctor Strange does are spells that like Wanda or Agatha, or there's a character named Magic, like all these other characters. Like
Is he Speed's brother?
it's a bit
Like
on the
third-
nose.
Magic is actually Colossus's sister, and she knows how to do magic spells. And she learned some things, I think, from Doctor Strange at one point. But anyway, there's all these different characters, and they can do a lot of the same magic spells, but they have different sources for their power.
What does Mephisto want with the twins in the comics? Because like I assume it'll be a similar end game, whether it is Mephisto or Agnes.
Yeah, in the comics, it's because the twins are actually shards of Mephisto's soul that was shattered. And so, like, Mephisto got in a fight with somebody, and they shattered his soul into a bunch of pieces. And those pieces were just kind of floating around as, like, concentrated magic. And then Wanda magically tried to create these two kids and inadvertently harnessed those two shards of Mephisto's soul to create them, because creating a person is actually really difficult. And the only way that she was able to do it successfully on accident was by using those two shards. So then Mephisto tries to get them so that he can reabsorb those bits of his soul, basically. And then he does do that, and then they end up getting reincarnated through some other people later in the comics.
Oh yeah, so kind of.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
I like it. I understood that reference.
Yeah.
But I do
think
think
Richards that did it.
I was gonna say it definitely he wants those kids like either for her powers or to keep her there or something along those lines. Like it's gotta, and especially if she actually did create them and it wasn't Agnes, it wasn't Mephisto. If she actually created them, then there's some kind of special power within them. And especially like why would like she didn't have kids with her brother, so like why would speed be one of the powers that the kids have? Like why would it literally be a
dormant
reincarnation?
gene?
Yeah, something.
I mean, they didn't really in the comics, the way that because at the time they were considered to be mutants. That got changed later on, but when Wiccan and Speed both came along, you know, Scarlet Witch was a mutant character, and like mutant characters, when they had kids, a lot of the time they were also mutants. Sometimes they weren't, but sometimes they were. But a lot of the time, the powers that they inherited didn't really have much to do with their parents. A lot of time it was just something random. But yeah, I don't know. They didn't ever really explain that in the comics. But in the comics, that's what their powers are also. One of them's a speedster, and hence the name Speed. And one of them has the magic, like Wanda, sort of. But yeah, I don't know. But it is Vision and Wanda who are considered their parents in the comics.
Speaking of the twins, Jogproof, thanks for the cheer, and hope Wanda willingly magics the twins away to protect them, and they both end up with the Kaplans. Who are the Kaplans?
Yes.
I don't.
Game of Thrones reference.
I don't remember anybody with that name off the top of my head.
Or maybe they were with. Maybe that's one of the families in the.
Oh, I think that's probably the family that they got reincarnated into. Because it was kind of a fucked up situation, because when the kids got reincarnated, they basically because of the way the timing worked, when they find them, they're like 8 or 9 years old or something like that. But the event when they had needed to be reincarnated only happened like a year prior to that. So the thing that everybody was wondering is did they just take over 2 other kids that would have been normal people, and they became Wiccan and Speed?
Yes, apparently he was born Billy Kaplan. Wiccan was.
Right. Okay.
We got a Wonder Woman 84 situation on our hands with the kids.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Really, it was. And so they never really answered that question. But yeah,
just sweep this under the rug. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. Kids.
What do you guys think of the mailman? What's up with him?
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
He has been around a lot. Maybe that's Ralph.
Especially he's got a Presto on his uniform, like his Amazon delivery uniform says Presto. And then he's kind of everyone looks at them arguing, But then when Agatha shows up, everyone goes back because I feel she's controlling it, so everyone goes back. But then he follows them like down the road. We don't see him again. But,
he was in other episodes though.
Yeah.
He's been around a lot.
Is he the beekeeper?
Because like Billy and Tommy ran into him, and he was like, "Oh, your mom will fix it,"
I do want to know what happened to the beekeeper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
I'm still curious if when all of this stuff ends up going away, assuming that it does, if now they're going to have a bunch of carnival equipment and stuff that's actually bulletproof.
Oh right.
Oh, yeah.
Because like
that hot air balloon is OP.
Because like yeah, exactly. Because like Monica's 70s clothes still are bulletproof because that's what she was wearing when she went in. So yeah, it's like the hot air balloon actually made of whatever those
a helicopter.
A helicopter was made out of.
That's funny.
So what are you guys looking forward to like in these last 2 episodes that are supposedly both an hour long? I've given up on believing any of the rumors. But like that Paul Bettany said that there's someone in the show that he's wanted to work with his entire life. Like that's such a statement. Paul Bettany's worked with a lot of people. He's had a long career, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the next episode could be kind of like episode 4 was, where we jump back a little bit. Like, what if we just focus on Agatha for a whole episode and figure out who she is, what she wants, what she's been doing, get more. I mean, it could open with the theme song again and just show more specifically what she's been doing and why.
There was some speculation online that it might be if Mephisto is actually still in the cards, that maybe whoever's playing Mephisto might be the person that that they were talking about, and that it might be some big name actor that's playing Mephisto. That would be interesting. Or if it's still the aerospace person, might still be showing up. I don't know.
I'm
reading either one of those
about the mailman. So yeah, he's got Presto on his shirt and he's got a rabbit on his hat.
Oh, could that be Scratch, Nicholas Scratch as well?
Could be.
Could
taking
be
different forms.
Or that's just Mephisto, and he's just kind of like playing along, like do.
And in the comics, Nicholas Scratch is more of a bad guy than Agnes is, also. And he has like his like main weapon is called Satan's Staff, which is like the stick that he uses to cast spells. So he's pretty blatantly kind of a bad guy.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a comic book scenario that he's involved with where they are in the town of Sintersville and Sintersville.
Okay.
But everyone that lives in the town is possessed by a demon, and it's like this whole big thing that the Avengers have to get involved with.
But like, I am a little bit worried, I guess, that if it's going to be another reveal of like, and it wasn't Agnes all along, so I'm a little just curious how they're going to handle that, if that's what they're doing, or if it's going to be the simplified, like, we're not going to just go bring Satan into this. We'll just make Agnes that role. But
I mean, I could see it being that, like, if Mephisto is pulling the strings, it could have been Agnes all along, and he was making her do this stuff,
Right.
In the same way that it was all Wanda is actually still true, because it is Wanda's powers that are creating the hex. But again, she's being kind of manipulated into using her powers to do that. So I don't know.
Yeah, because I want Agnes. I kind of want Agnes to be the big bad. I don't want like another person behind. But I do agree with Alex. I think I don't know how long this episode is going to be. I don't really care that much, but I do think the first part of it is going to be a more in-depth about the strings that Agnes was pulling the entire time. Stuff she fixed. The guy choking on at dinner in the very first episode, Agatha fixing that. Stuff like that. That Vision was like, wait, why? And then, Agnes, like, zipping it out of his brain or fixing that. I do want a full-on, like, behind the scenes throughout all these episodes and timelines of her being behind the scenes and pulling the strings of Wanda with her controlling it.
Yeah, did she sabotage the lobster that she showed up with?
Yeah.
I think they need... Oh God!
What is happening in your
Did
chat?
we get rated?
I'm pretty sure this is Mark's doing.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think we got rated.
That just felt like I could hear Mark's voice yelling that. Thank you, Mark. God, what were we saying?
I don't remember.
So I really want them to, I demand an explanation. I want them to kind of show, what Agnes wants with Wanda, like as far as magical knowledge, because I do think that the hex, a lot of this stuff going on is Wanda's doing and her rewinding things. I think Wanda did that, but I think they need to set like some boundaries and say like this was Agatha and this was Wanda, so we just know exactly how guilty Wanda is in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was saying, like everyone's asking like who the big bad is. Like Wanda's not exactly a protagonist right now. Like she's been told multiple times that people are in pain and like trying to get out of this, and she's like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. Like, and we see like, the lady that's, hanging her thing, like she has like a tear coming down her eye because she's like at least somewhat aware of what's happening and she can't get out of it. So I'm not saying Wanda's the big bad, but she's not our hero of this story.
Well, it's like, I wonder if Wanda did like the groundwork and then Agatha came along and was doing like Ashton has pointed out a few times that when Norm snaps out of it, he says like, she's in my head and it hurts. He doesn't say Wanda. Agatha is the only person that ever said Wanda's doing this. So I do think there probably is a divide between what Agatha is doing and what Wanda is doing.
Yeah,
but
Wanda says
Agatha still has questions about it.
Wanda had that line of like, how could I be controlling all of this and doing all of this?
She doesn't remember how it started.
Yeah. I mean, if we operate under the assumption that there's someone like Mephisto here, like if he traps Agatha first, Agatha is less powerful than Wanda, and so she's easier to take control of. Mephisto gets control of Agatha and then uses her as kind of like a handler for Wanda while he's getting her completely taken over too and turned into a puppet. Like that could be basically what's going on, which would be cool if that is the way it goes, because then Agatha could end up breaking free of this spell and becoming kind of a companion to Wanda and help her, in the future.
See, I'm the kind of the opposite of you, Alex. I think Wanda takes Vision's body and like falls asleep and then wakes up and then like just kind of builds off of Agnes's foundation of like, okay, we're gonna build your own reality. And then Wanda realizes she's in control of it, like can control everything, can edit things out that she doesn't want. But there's still so many breaks to where like she's not fully like realizing what she's doing. Like the stop it, while he's choking, and then she's like, why is no one helping? But then when Darcy's watching it, all that's cut out. Or like any argument between her and Vision of someone that she can't control as well, like she can't control Vision at all. But that's all edited out of the final product. So she's like got a certain level of control, but she didn't build the foundation of this. Like she didn't start this, but she's like, trying to keep up with it. And that's why it's kind of falling apart as it gets bigger and bigger.
And we also have the question of like, why can't Vision leave the hex? Why did the hex start here? And it seems like quite the coincidence that it happens to be on top of Agatha's magical basement. Unless she could magic that anywhere.
Who's the witness? Because didn't we start this?
Oh yeah, there's that too.
Yeah, because like it just who knows if anyone would have found out about this if FBI didn't have like a witness protection person in this town. Will that be anybody, or would that just be like, the inciting incidents? Like it doesn't have anything to do with it, but
yeah,
I feel like that's got to go somewhere. Like
I feel like Agatha is maybe her therapist in this situation, because you said earlier, like in the comics, she's kind of helpful. Maybe Agatha's just trying to help.
Yeah, just use your magic. Go nuts. No,
just let it out.
Yeah. Also, they said that the signal stopped, so they're no longer getting the TV show signal outside of the hex. I'm wondering why that stopped.
Like, because how everyone could, the beekeeper and Monica passed through it, but then when it turned red, when she changed like the density, for lack of a better term, like that's when it was like this full block of Monica only getting through because she has powers. So she changed something with it to where no one could enter, and the only reason why Monica got through is because she'd been altered by it twice.
Yeah. That was a crazy scene.
Also, I totally called what's her name ending up in the Houdini escape artist thing.
Yeah, you did.
Oh yeah, Darcy was great.
Darcy, yeah.
Even in character in the Hex, she was just kind of like sarcastic, and I loved that she got to punch that guy.
Yeah.
I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Was that guy someone that we recognized?
I think he was the one that cuffed her. Like, I think that she was the one that cuffed her and left her there. And she was like, and like, I love that I noticed it in the recap when she goes, oh, fuck. And as it changes to fudge as it becomes the TV show. I say the F word, and then it went to the TV show, and she's like, "Oh, fudge!" Like
that's funny.
Like she got censored by the TV show.
I also like we haven't really talked about the Office / Modern Family style a whole lot, but the fact that they just they showed that scene again of the soldiers being overwhelmed by the Hex, where last week it was like an oh shit moment. But this time it's got like the conga drums, and you're like, it's played for laughs and it works. I like. Also
that was one thing, was like within the bounds of the like TV show, within the TV show, we saw a shot from outside the Hex of the guys getting pulled into it, which
that's true.
Like when that happened, I was like, what was that? Like that was weird. Because that kind of, I wouldn't have thought that would have been something that could be included in that bit.
And we saw that as Wanda was going into the basement, she left the show. Like the aspect ratio changed like it does, but so that the basement is not in Westview, I guess. It's outside of the Hex is what I would assume that means.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Well, it's because like the point of view from the stairs is like an actual basement, but then when she gets to the bottom, it turns into like, the cave.
Yeah.
So it's like she must have passed through some kind of, like another different dimension or reality viewpoint of it actually becoming what it is and not what it looks like to the TV show.
Yep.
So many questions.
And someone pointed out when, I don't know, like you guys have probably covered this, but like when she said the dog died from eating azalea leaves, the only thing that matched that is Azazel, which is like another form for the devil. So.
Well, and Azazel is a character in Marvel. He was in
First
Class. Yeah.
Oh yeah. First Class.
Because he's Nightcrawler's dad.
Man, the writing for this show is just insane. It's just like it's so cool. It's so different from anything I've ever seen, and all the super deep cuts to different Marvel things. It's pretty cool. I dig it.
So the only question I have left is, why can't Vision leave the Hex? And we got a Streamlab question as well.
Because something in the Hex is keeping him alive.
Yeah. Like Wanda's like the Hex is what's keeping him, put together basically. But it is interesting though that like when Monica left the Hex, she still like her clothes stayed transformed. But eventually she came back to her senses though. So, it's not like everything within the Hex is completely permanent. So I guess that making Vision into a living Vision is too powerful of a thing for it to last very long once they leave the Hex. I don't know. But it is weird that he like was literally crumbling, not just, becoming a dead vibranium body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was like pulling him back in instead of, I was kind of expecting him to force his way out and then just fall over dead.
Yeah.
We were talking about her character from what was
Parks
it?
and Rec.
Yeah, Parks and Rec. Poncho.
Poncho.
I don't want to say that Leslie is a dog killer. I just want to say that some of her actions raise some questions. Like, is she a dog killer?
Don't say another word. I have to charge you $200,000. Don't. I don't want to do that. Should I put this here? Don't answer that.
She's such a good actress.
Yeah, she's wonderful. We got a Streamlab question from Rashad. Thanks so much. The book in the basement had orange energy and 2 ram's heads on it, which could be related to Mephisto. Do you think Agatha is working with or being manipulated by him? I should have read that earlier because we've discussed that pretty in depth. But
Oh, okay. I kind of see the rams now. They're like kind of butting heads.
Well, and also, you know, if Billy and Tommy, like if what you were saying is accurate, where the basement is outside of the hex, then what happens when Billy or Tommy go outside of the hex?
That's true.
You know, if they did go to play in the basement, well, you know, what does that actually mean? Maybe Billy and Tommy are the book.
Oh no.
Oh, that's.
Or they could be trapped in the book or
They
something.
could be trapped in the book. Yeah.
Yeah, like you wonder like how dark this show is gonna get because once you involve kids and possibly like when she said, you know, I bit a kid once, so like are they gonna eat the kids for their magic powers? Like are they gonna eliminate them and say like they were never real? Like how dark does the MCU want to get when it involves 2 superpowered kids? Like
Yeah, but I mean it's such a especially for it to be Wanda's kids, like they are characters within the comics that have their own story and everything that they could use within the MCU. So I'd be really surprised if they just like kill them off, unless they're getting, you know, reincarnated again or whatever, like in the comics. But I mean, and that's, you know, certainly possible.
Do you guys think Vision makes it through this? Do you think he comes back to the MCU?
I don't think so.
No. I agree. I like Ashton's guess that, especially if this is like lining up with the stages of grief and then acceptance being the end, I think we all have to accept Vision's death and move on.
Yeah.
Well, and it has to be a thing
I like your idea.
Well, and it has to be a thing where they have to, like, Wanda can't just be able to bring people back from the dead, like, whenever she wants, or they could bring back anybody, and that shouldn't really be possible just for storytelling, you know, storytelling reasons.
And I just like your idea of her having
Unless you're
to
Palpatine.
sacrifice the thing that she wants.
Well, that's only in Fortnite, Molly. That only happens in Fortnite where they actually explain it. They don't explain it in the actual movie. Wait,
are you telling me? I didn't know that. Do I have to play Fortnite to get some Star Wars lore?
Well,
what are you talking about?
Like the dead speak. The only way you could hear Palpatine's message to the galaxy is
that
Fortnite cutscene. Like,
okay, yeah.
yeah. So,
I mean, maybe it is like almost a seance thing that she's doing, where she's like bringing back an like Vision from beyond the grave, like, and if he leaves the area of like the ritual circle or whatever, then he falls apart. Maybe it's something like that.
I don't think Wanda could bring back anyone. It's just the Soul Stone or the Mind Stone and her are actually connected because like that's where she got her powers from. So like that's why she could bring him back, is like her powers got created by the Mind Stone, and then she could put her powers back into a new Mind Stone or make a new one if she so wanted to.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's kind of weird because the Mind Stone was used for like a whole bunch of different things that don't really necessarily line up with what you would expect from like the Mind Stone, with it creating illusions and things. It does other stuff too, so we don't really know the extent of what it could do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm out of questions. Does anyone else have any questions or anything they want to say before we wrap up?
How many more episodes do we have?
2.
Who do you guys want to play Mephisto?
Ooh.
I was about to say Willem Dafoe, but he's Green Goblin already, so.
Well, I mean,
he was in DC as well. Like it's not
Captain America was the Human Torch, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
But if there's rumors that Willem Dafoe is in Spider-Man, but maybe he's in Spider-Man as Mephisto. I don't know.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe would be really good for that role. I don't know. I think that there was a rumor online that it would be Al Pacino because what's his name? I'm
Bettany.
having like Paul Bettany. He's a huge Al Pacino fan, and so the whole thing about like it being someone he's wanted to work with his whole life and all that, you know, if that is actually the role that is the character, or is the actor,
and be the devil. Go watch Devil's Advocate. He's amazing in it. My vote is actually because like when was it Wanda that said like, oh, we have a Mark Hamill level cameo like in Mando? I'm actually rooting for Mark Hamill because I think
it was literally Mark Hamill.
It was literally Mark Hamill. Like it was that was not a metaphor. It was not a metaphor. It was not.
That'd be very funny.
Actually, Mark Hamill.
All right, well, I think that's it for this episode. Ben, let everyone know where they can find you.
Everything at the Ben Goddard, y'all. Twitch.tv, Patreon, all that good stuff at the Ben Goddard. I'll be streaming probably like in 30 minutes after this too. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Ashton?
I am on Twitch at Yeti Boatman. That's my Twitch channel there, and I stream on Tuesdays and sometimes on Mondays.
If you're feeling feisty.
Yeah.
Molly?
I'm at Molly Damon on Twitter, and you can find me talking about the Schmodown on POV. You can find me and Jill doing happy hour once a month. Our next show is sometime in March, and it's going to involve a lot of whiskey, so it's going to be fun.
They schedule it at the end of the last happy hour, so they always forget when the next one.
Yeah. And of course, you can find us on Star Wars Explained. I'll be continuing my Lego stream for the Grand Piano on Monday here. I think we're going to do an extra. I'm talking about doing another episode of Explain It to Me next Wednesday to talk about Mortal Kombat, because our friend, fellow streamer Winter Twig, told me there's lore to Mortal Kombat and started dumping it on me. And I was like, what? I just thought people hit each other in this. So I'm going to have him explain
Thank you, Brian.
that to me. And then we'll be back here next Friday to talk about the next episode. And for now, I'm going to send you all over to the Blunder Dome. We're going to raid them, and I'm going to be playing games with them here in a little bit. But thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.